Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplify, and today I'm joined by Chett. Chett, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
You bet. Well, Chett is an absolute rock star. So before we dive into the subject, Chett, maybe explain a little bit about your background, what you love about marketing, what you're passionate about, and then we'll dive into a good conversation today about marketing and content.
Yeah, my career actually started in sales. And as I continued to grow in that function, I wanted to drive more revenue outside of just being on the phones, and that led me into marketing. Ultimately, most of my career has been in small businesses where I've been able to get my hands on a lot of different things. And it always came back to how can I connect with the audience, right? How can I meet them where they are at? I always look at, marketing as a relationship, and it's what is the next step in that relationship? And it always goes back to content marketing. So currently I'm in a Bamboo HR and love it there and part of the demand generation team there.
And shout out to Bamboo HR, awesome local Utah company, super cool stuff. Know a lot of good people there, so really cool. Chett, we know you're busy. Thanks for taking the time out of the day. With the current state of things, and I think this is universally applicable regardless of the economic state of things, everything we do in marketing has to be tied to revenue. Those are the activities, those are the things we're doing. Even brand building emotions and things of that nature are ultimately to help grow the business. That's just the nature of marketing nowadays. And it's the reality. And I think we've all come to accept that, but we're all trying to get better at it. So when it comes to content marketing, a good question is, well, how can I align it to revenue? How can I line up this strategy, this motion, this channel, these efforts to the proper motions that will drive the revenue for the business that we're looking for so we can accomplish our goals? So when you look at that, Chett, what are some of the thoughts that you have and the stages you go through to align content to revenue at the businesses that you're at to accomplish and hit your goals?
Anyone that's worked in marketing, specifically in content marketing, has always had the question of, okay, this is great. I love the idea, but when are we going to have revenue from this, right? And so I think this is incredibly important. I look at this from a making sure content is driving revenue. I look at it in, 4 different sections. The first one might not be as obvious, but I think it's really important you start at the foundation, and that's making sure that your content is aligned properly from an org chart standpoint. And let me explain what I mean by this is content marketing. If you go from company to company, it sits in a lot of different teams. Oftentimes it'll be product marketing or demand gen, but it can also be as a standalone team and somewhere else. And I'm not going to tell you where it belongs because that really changes based on if you're a product-led motion or a marketing-led motion. But where content marketing sits matters because alignment ultimately is going to dictate the KPIs you focus on. Those KPIs are going to dictate strategy, and that strategy is going to dictate the actual tactics, right? And so it's not necessarily where it sits today, like in regards to like where it sits at Bamboo does not necessarily mean it's where it sits, needs to sit with your organization. But you have to make sure that it's aligned properly. Otherwise, your strategy is not going to be aligned to revenue in the right way. So if you go to your content team and you say, all right, where's the revenue from this? They're going to say, but that's not the KPI you want me to focus on, right? And so alignment matters. The next part, when you think about aligning your content strategy to revenue, is how am I aligning my content strategy to the intent of my audience? And what I mean by that is like, what is the actual buying intent? We know that most people aren't in market, right? When I think about marketing, if I simplify marketing to the roots of what marketing is, a good friend of mine, Robert Thompson, posted this on LinkedIn a couple years ago, and I go back to this all the time with my team. Marketing is just a message plus an audience equals an action. Great marketing is a specific message, a targeted audience, and a desired action. And so if I have a message and say I'm sending out an email, it's a low funnel offer, someone that's, a buyer's guide, right? And I'm sending out to a wide audience. that really has no buying intent, right? The action is they're going to unsubscribe from that, right? And so I need to make sure that my message is aligned with the intent of that audience. And in order to really do that, you have to understand the buyer's journey. There's a lot of different ways to articulate the buyer's journey. I'm not going to get into that, but ultimately, like, there is a buyer's journey, and it's not linear. It's not awareness, consideration, decision, like we like to put it as marketers on a slide deck, right? Our job as a content team is to align every asset to that stage in the buyer's journey. And how are we influencing them to take the next step in their natural buyer's journey? Not the buyer's journey that I put on a slide deck, right? But their buyer's journey. That's the goal there, is how can I align my strategy to the buying intent of my audience? The next part, I think, is the most difficult. And this is where we really start to look at driving pipeline, is to align our efforts to our product. And so when I say this in natural, people think I'm saying, well, we need to promote our product. And that's actually not it. I'm very against pitching your product in content marketing. So what I want to do is work backwards from your product. So if you're listening, if you have a minute, open up a Google Sheet. And what I typically tell people to do, this is what I do, is in a Google Sheet, you want to find, 8 to 9 different columns. And the first column, this is your brand. Most companies are only going to have a single brand that you're promoting for. Next column is product, then feature, then benefit, pain, stage, persona, and then lastly, format. And so what we'll do is we'll start with the brand, which in this case is Bamboo HR, right? I'll take our product, and we have 6 or 7 different products. So I'll start with a row of product, right? And then the next column on feature, I'm going to list every feature that falls under that product. And then with the next column is benefit. I'm going to, underneath that that row for the feature, I'm going to add additional rows for every benefit. So here I have one product, and I might have 5 or 6 different features. But within that individual feature, I might have 10 different benefits. Okay. And then on the next column is pain. And pain is really what we're getting at here is the content topic, not the content title, but the topic. So when you think about those individual benefits that you just listed, what is the pain that your audience is suffering that benefit addresses? So if you go and list all the different pains, whether it's like an emotional, like frustration they have in their role for your persona, right? Or whether it's an actual problem that their business is having, where they're having a rising cost somewhere, right? That your product fixes, right? So list every one of those pain points, and if you take these first 5 columns, right, this is the core of how I would put together a content strategy. So now I'm going to go and duplicate this, or to take this to the next level. Is in the next column, and I'm going to talk about the stage. Okay, so hopefully at this point you've articulated, the different stages of intent or the buyer's journey. And so when I take a look at that topic that I just created in the 5th column, what are the different stages of intent, and how would I change that topic based on the different levels of intent? If someone has low buying intent, what are the different types of pains or topics or queries that they're going to have at a low buying intent, right? This is like when they're going to Google and they're just trying to discover what their problem is, right? And so I list the different stages and how that topic might change. And then taking it to even a deeper level is, how does that change as I look at a persona? Bamboo HR, we're talking with directors of IT. We're talking to the CFO. We're talking to head of people, the different HR managers, sometimes in smaller businesses, the CEO, right? And so each one of those is I'm going to approach this a little bit differently, right? And then lastly, format. I can take the same piece of content and create it a little bit differently in a PDF versus a webinar versus a podcast episode, right? And do that differently for each stage of the buyer's journey for different personas. And so without doing too much work, in a 30-minute exercise, I can create a content plan with 25 to 50 different assets for one feature of one of my products that are going to help align this back. Now, I'm not pitching my product at all. But in this process, I'm creating the type of content that as people consume it, it's naturally part of their buyer's journey. And then I work with my demand gen team to make sure I'm putting that at the different channels of the different, to the right audiences. And as people engage that through marketing automation, different pieces, it's really easy for me to help them progress down the buyer's journey. And it all aligns back to the product when I haven't pitched at this point in time. And so this is the bulk of the work, but this is how we've helped align our content marketing to revenue. In the last organization I went by doing this, we were a startup, literally had $0 in pipeline from a marketing standpoint. We took it from 0 to 1.8 million in qualified pipeline just by implementing something like this. Over the last year, we've done this and have increased content generated pipeline by 300%, right? And so this can be very powerful if you do this. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that are saying, well, what about SEO? What about, those different signals? Yes, layer all that in. But this is just the foundation of how I look at content. And then the last part, so we've talked about organizational alignment. We've talked about aligning to the buyer's journey or aligning to intent. We've talked about aligning your product to your content, right? And then last one is aligning your funnel. And this is just being a good digital marketer, right? There's lots of arguments online about, do I gate the content? Do I not gate the content? My answer is going to be like, it depends. It depends on your strategy and how you're doing things. But when someone's going to download an ebook, you can absolutely put a check mark on them that says, yeah, I would also like a demo about this particular topic, right? And so look for ways to optimize for conversion, align your funnel for conversion, for pipeline. It's okay to ask for people to hop on the phone with you at the right point in time. So ask for the next engagement, make sure you're using the right sort of retargeting audiences. And, we could talk an hour about aligning your marketing funnel to content marketing looks like. But so those are the main 4 things: organizational alignment, aligning to intent, aligning to your product, and lastly, aligning the funnel. So that's how I approach content marketing.
I love it. I would call that a masterclass right there of what you just gave. I think that's fantastic. Honestly, I don't think there's much else we can add to that. I mean, I think we could go into depth on a lot of that, but I think that is a fantastic framework. You hit on so many good points. The organizational alignment, you're right. It gets often overlooked, but depending on where it sits will determine what its KPIs are and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think a lot of people struggle. I've seen it different in almost every business where content lives. And 100%, you just ask yourself the question, well, what do I want it to do? And then based off that response, go find a team that has the same goal. That's where content should live. And I think the rest that you talked about, to the buyer journey, the product, the funnel, I think the alignment's golden. It's amazing. Well, honestly, that's all the time we have for today. But thank you, Chett. This was really informative. This is absolutely an exercise I'm going to do. I really appreciate it. If someone wants to connect and further the conversation with you, how can they reach out and connect with you online?
Find me on LinkedIn. As far as I know, I'm the only Chett Coombs on LinkedIn. Chett and Coombs are not very common names. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to make a connection. If you ever want to dive deeper into any of this, feel free to send me a DM. And as long as I'm not getting 75 in the first day or so, I'm happy to hop on a quick call to answer any questions you have about this. So
love it. Well, again, thank you, Chett, for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.